if you look at the technology, it's a very high content of technology which has been developed, designed in India. But again at the price point. So if you're looking at the Scorpio, when it was launched, it didn't go in price. There was no price increase on it. You're able to get more of these features at a lower price. And that is something which is the way to go. And I was actually looking at the missed call example which was given. This is a classic case of the psyche of the Indian customer. I think it was invented by the teenage college students because they were the key ones who come up with this level of frugal mindset and also to tell their parents that they have reached a college or not. It is great that there is an innovative mindset right from the teenage level, but that is really the challenge for all of us here when you're actually making this offering. So classic case of this missed call. So when I was actually developing quite a few years back for telematics in terms of the communication device and trying to sell this. So we started at a much higher rate and then we kept going on up to like say 50 paisa or something for each of the call, and then we said 100 rupees subscription rate for every month. So this is giving it to the truck driver or not. Unfortunately, the competition was 0 paisa. That was a missed call. So you really have to think what more can you give than what a missed call can give, and what is that the customer willing to pay for. And this is going to be a very, very critical success factor going forward. So when I talk about that, that is what is my last point, but I will first talk about the first one on capability building. This is extremely critical. It is not the numbers that we have the numbers. There's no doubt about it. But it's the question of the quality that we bring in. And the second one, many of these things, it is just passed off as some idea which is something crazy, or it goes when we don't have a culture of registering. Our basmati rice or your turmeric are classic examples of Indian IPR which somebody else was able to monetize. So especially on the small and medium enterprises, the members of the coalition, you really need to think any idea that is coming which might be your way of life, you need to focus on how you protect it and how you actually generate revenue out of it, and that will be very critical. Second one, what you are doing here is a classic example, and I represent the Society of Automotive Engineers. So we have a large community where we bring together the industry, we bring together academia, and we also bring together government. So if you want to actually influence policy making, this is a great opportunity if you are able to get this to just network and then essentially to build and then deliver the value to the end user. The last part which I talked about is this frugal innovation and making these technologies accessible. And this is something which we have been working on for quite a few years at Mahindra, and I'm sure many of you are working on, and this is what I would say will be helping us to gain this competitive advantage in a scenario where it's essentially becoming global. So you cannot afford to close your eyes to what is going on in the real world. If you have to compete, we have to compete globally and not just limit ourselves to a small region. So I'm sure all the members here are geared up for this, and I'm sure India as a country, we will be taking over from the rest of the world and be the leaders in the future, which we deserve to be. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a big round of applause for it? And this again is ready manufacturing, increasing efficiency through telecom solutions.
It's a privilege to follow a limited set of speakers and panelists. So I take the privilege of representing the missed call industry. Thanks for setting the tone and for the evening. Respected dignitaries in the room, eminent entrepreneurs, ladies and gentlemen. We represent an industry which is, if we're talking about products launching every year, if that's an obsoleteness, we're talking about launching new plans, new set of products just to appeal to the customers and continuously be challenged to prove value to the customers on a daily basis. So India is really a market of opportunity, market of huge challenge. And I do recall one of the very provocative I would say statements that I heard during my working career in Vodafone is, here is a reference to one of the Harvard case studies or something about how if you don't inflict revolution on yourself, revolution will be thrust on you. So if you don't inflict revolution on yourself by design, your revolution will be thrust on you. So I think we are at that moment of cusp in the Indian industry where there are challenges, and I think I would want to start my presentation with a set of challenges that I see pretty much reflects the kind of conditions we live in. But again, the opportunity horizon looks really, really exciting for us. If you look at a market like India, I think probably one of the worst in terms of the power distribution. ATC losses of 30%. So 1/3 of the power generated is not getting distributed. So there is a huge government program to reduce the losses by 50% of this, which is bring it down to 15% levels. Business critical assets, things like machines in the retail, VC coolers that you see in the market, DG sets, and many such expensive assets which are sitting in the books of either the manufacturers or the funds or the companies who are actually sponsoring these assets in the retail. 7 to 10% of them are written off annually on a year-on-year basis. The reason? It's just humongous to invest in manual auditing of these machines, very expensive assets, but it is just the scale and the geographical diversity that we have. It makes it almost impossible to do a manual audit and track every asset. Can we do something about it? Again, a reflective statement that reflects the Indian infrastructure, maybe a statement also reflects the quality of road infrastructure that we have, the kind of market logistics segment that we have, where a lot of the trucks are actually market trucks, not really owned by the fleet owners. So at our best, I think Indian market, 70% of the market is owned, the owners are actually owned not more than 2 to 5 fleets. So if that is a kind of 2.8 is the payload trips in a month, I think it's not something great stat to talk about. And lastly, there is a strong correlation between what the consumers perceive, especially if it were very relevant for the companies in manufacturing who are actually extending the horizon into the services as well, which is partly inevitable, is the perception around the consumer or maybe consumers, maybe industries who buy these products. The perception around service pretty much defines the perception they have about the company and the brand. So something to reflect upon is, can you do something to improve the service, maybe by design rather than as an afterthought. So having said that, I think the opportunity looks exciting, right? So all these conditions are definitely the context in which we all have to operate, the context in which Mahindra, one of the privileged customers of ours, I would be proud to say when I had written on the word called frugal innovation, but Arvind has kind of nicely set in the context. Something that we're proud about is doing the first connected car in the market is Mahindra Reva. So we couldn't have been more proud than that to say that that's a car, that's an electric car, right on the top of the agenda of India, and not just India, around the world, clean energy, renewable energy. That's a car that is talking about preventive services, not really about when a customer calls, you don't know what the condition of the car is. Proactively knows what is the condition of the car, proactively tells you which is the nearest charging point within 5 kilometers radius if it's in Bangalore. So that is the designing of a product to market conditions. So you can always say that I want to design it for the global markets. Of course, there are different compliances, but the context in which you operate is very important for the products that we design. Make in India, I think I would be, I don't want to preach again. I think Make in India to us actually is an opportunity where I was reading the stats where manufacturing, the ambition of the government, if you read the underlining, is contribution of manufacturing to 25% of the GDP by maybe a decade from now, which is about 16% today. So that really is a manifestation of what the entire program could really be about. Just in time, I think we talked about it, having process efficiencies and making it more efficient in terms of production. Digital India. So the reason I bring it up is the opportunity that is there for electronics manufacturing. And I couldn't blink an eye when there was a video on the Scorpio, because the amount of sensors, the amount of development IT code that is written into it must be humongous, right? So those electronics is an opportunity to manufacture them in India. So, and smart cities opens up a new world altogether. Talking about 100, even if it's a dream, let's assume they're at 20 in the next 5 to 10 years, the opportunity still is humongous. If you're talking about creating new cities of a new world altogether. And I think one of the earlier speakers also talked about addressing international markets as a horizon. make in India for India, but also for the globe. So as you have this opportunity of interacting and leveraging the best practices around the world, that is something to really ponder upon. Now, let me get into the context as when we look at manufacturing from a telecom side, and is, of course, revenue and the growth is an ambition, but if you focus on something which is core within the business, efficiency turns out to be one of the key needs of the hour. It could be, so we were actually working on innovating for one of the companies, most probably franchisee manufacturing of the consumer chips. How, if the potatoes don't arrive on time, they already have a fixed cost of labor, which is idling actually, and the equipment which is anyway idling, which is basically the burning cost, but actually it's hitting the manufacturing and which is hitting the batch and the projections and thereafter the revenues, right? Now the question there was, the problem there was actually they didn't have the visibility on when a truck from Maharashtra is going to arrive, maybe in Kolkata or maybe in Chennai. The reason being, this is a market truck, the driver was not completely controlled, and the consignment was actually potatoes which was theirs. Now, is there a way to get a better visibility into your supply chain so that you are manufacturing and you are timing your batch and maybe you are able to control some of those costs which are fixed? Maybe, I don't know if you can make it variable, but definitely some opportunity for us to put very, very frugal technology, not expensive, into the supply chain and see if that gives you visibility on a real-time basis. Obviously, the core part of the operation, which is your equipment, and can you put in some technology, and I think we are talking about a world of connected devices. Is there a possibility to do a preventive maintenance of the equipment so that you're cutting down any possibility of downtime? It could be a hosiery manufacturing in Ludhiana, it could be any SMB dealing with any product. Essentially, you're talking about intelligent machines and smart machines. It's no different from the world of industrial automation, just that the technology has become more affordable right now. So let's see if there is a good marriage that we can do bringing these two together. And third, obviously, we talked about how the customers and the distributors, as you go into the front end part of your business, is really becoming more critical. So can you use some existing technology to do it? The answer to us is definitely yes. I think as we were talking about, I think when we look at, I also looked at one of the panel and we said micro SMEs and SMEs and medium businesses. To us, it's a time continuum of a company. So a company which is a micro SME today actually has an aspiration to become small enterprise, a medium enterprise, and a large enterprise. So it's on a growth continuum. They're all actually at different curves of maturity. So it's all about how do you prepare for tomorrow while you are actually addressing your core challenges of growing, but at the same time trying to be efficient in what you do. And I think if you marry that situation and look at what's happening in the world, this could be those expensive devices sitting in our living rooms, maybe in the bedrooms, but nothing stops us from applying this technology the way we applied with Reva in the car, the way we can do it maybe in irrigation pumps. I know some of the markets, Indian markets do open up possibilities like that. Maybe something to do with the farm equipment. I know of a way we have done in New Zealand, the quad bikes that are actually used in the farming area. They wanted an ability to track so that they are getting better visibility on what's happening on the ground. Now, those may be markets which are requiring, which can afford some of the technologies, but can we put our hands together to think about something that helps, especially on the farming side, with some of the equipment that goes in there in those markets. So, to bring back to what we think is something that is relevant for the times we live in, the industry context that you are in, is obviously when you're talking about global markets, talking about interacting with some of the global players, leveraging the best practices, mobility is a great start point. Please note, it's not mobile, it's mobility, because we're talking about innovative stuff like using smartphone enabled, you saw a new sense there, but the ability to use these existing technologies in the manner that is affordable in all your business linkages. Second, obviously, is the machine to machine, which is nothing but the connected world of devices and cars. Very simplified, can you make these assets intelligent? It could be a VC cooler in the market which is manufactured by some of the leading players, Everest, Western, whoever. But can you put a technology in it right in the manufacturing line that actually when it goes into the field, you actually are solving the 7%, 10% write-off problem in the books on a yearly basis. Because you exactly know where the asset is in the vast, maybe a 500,000 or 1 million retail outlets that it's being serving. And you maybe, if you have the technology in, you can also look at what kind of sales are happening, because it doesn't take too much to put a small camera to see is the retailer stocking the right product, or is he misusing it for storing the dosa batter maybe, right? So I think towards the opportunities are immense if you put small little technology in there. And I was just thinking, can I put this technology in the coconut climate machine? But maybe not. But we'll think about that as we go back. Collaboration, I think there are tools available, and I know of certain manufacturing companies which have federated this kind of tools across their supply chain, both backward and forward, to have real-time visibility and collaboration. So nothing, I'm not saying it's a breakthrough innovation, but these are technologies that have make you just all the more productive on the shop floor, in the offices. And fixed line, I couldn't notice being in Chennai or in Tamil Nadu and not talk about the latest e-commerce buzz that is happening. So everyone wants to be on the e-commerce bandwagon, trying to change the business mix from offline to online as well. So definitely it's an opportunity to look after. We've got a market of 1 billion maybe, if not more now, and there is enough marketing ammunition that all these e-commerce players are putting in. Now it's about, do we have the right infrastructure in place to be online, to be able to serve the product, to be able to have it cataloged there, to be able to serve any grievances of the customers, to be able to handle the returns. So if you take care of these 3-4 new aspects that open up, because actually suddenly getting into a wide jungle of e-commerce, I think we pretty much need a reliable connectivity in the core infrastructure that you look at. And especially, I also heard about growth in the global markets, keeping global markets as a context. And I think ability to be seamlessly connected across the globe, it could be wireless, it could be fixed line. That is something we bring in, and I think we could definitely collaborate to see how that improves the efficiency in your business area. And last but not the least is the cloud. It's a technology which is, look at it as more of a good, I wouldn't call it disruption, but good innovative business models that have opened up because of this. Makes it very easy to afford, make it actually very easy to innovate, especially when you're doing a skunk work kind of model. You don't have to invest too much upfront. Use it as a technology to get kick-started and get into more confident connectivity as we talked about. So, I don't want to talk too much about it, slide. It just gives you a visual imprint that